My girlfriend put me on a 3-month probationary period. During that time, I wasn't allowed to kiss her, touch her, look at her phone, or even ask where she was going. Meanwhile, I had to reply to her texts instantly, be at her beck and call, and most importantly, keep our relationship a complete secret. If I failed, the trial would be over immediately. I was her complete doormat for 3 months, right up until the day her childhood sweetheart, the one she was obsessed with, got married. She told me I had passed her test, and we could finally be a real couple. I just laughed and said, "No thanks. I'm done playing this game." Later, she would confess her love to me in front of a crowd while wearing a wedding dress, and even offer herself to me, naked in my bed. When Diana Vance called, I was at the wake for my grandpa. She said, "Frank Miller, you have 15 minutes to get to my side." Now, but the man lying in the casket before me was the grandfather who had single-handedly raised me, and I wanted to be there for his final farewell, a fact Diana knew perfectly well. Is a dead person really more important than a living one? You have 12 minutes left. If you're not here, you fail the test. Her voice was sharp with impatience. She didn't even wait for my response before hanging up. What could possibly be so urgent that only I could handle it? I gave my grandpa's casket a final, deep bow and rushed to grab a cab back to Diana. I found her at her apartment building, panting as she lugged bags and boxes up the stairs. "I'm here, Diana," I said, reaching for the boxes in her arms, but she just jerked her head toward the street. A moving truck was parked out front, its back full of furniture. "Leo's moving, and the elevator's broken. Go help him." Of course, it was about Leo Hayes. Leo was Diana's childhood sweetheart, and for the 3 years I'd been pursuing her, he was a constant presence. It was only after Leo got engaged to his girlfriend that Diana finally agreed to go out with me. But she insisted on this 3-month trial period, where if I displeased her in any way, we were done. They were completely unreasonable terms, but I was so in love with her that I agreed. I spent the rest of the night hauling furniture, including a heavy wardrobe, up 5 flights of stairs until my back was screaming in protest. Diana just smiled at Leo and said, "It's the least we could do." "Well, let me take you both out to dinner tomorrow to say thanks," Leo offered, and Diana accepted for us before he could even finish a sentence. I told Diana that my grandpa was being cremated the next day, and I needed to be there. Her expression soured instantly. "Frank, don't be so ungrateful. Leo is offering to buy you dinner. Stop making things so complicated." The next day, my grandpa was cremated, and I wasn't there to even collect his ashes. At dinner, while Leo and his fiancée, Tina Foster, were toasting everyone for their help, I just downed a large glass of whiskey. Later, when I was in the bathroom throwing up, Diana didn't even bother to check on me. As I stood by the bathroom door, I overheard Diana talking to her best friend. "Diana, if you don't even like Frank, why are you with him?" her friend asked. "You wouldn't get it," Diana replied, lighting a cigarette and leaning against the doorframe. "If I were single, Leo would feel obligated to keep his distance out of respect for Tina. This way, I could still be around him." Her friend's eyes widened in understanding. "So what about Frank? Do you have any feelings for him at all?" Diana laughed. "I put him on this 3-month trial. Leo's wedding is at the end of it. I'm going to make one last move on it before then. If Leo turns me down, I'll just make things official with Frank. It's not so bad having a backup plan, right?" They both broke into a fit of laughter. Their words hit me like a ton of bricks. All this time with Diana, she had forbidden me from telling anyone we were together and demanded that her needs always came first. I hadn't even seen my own friends or family in ages because of it. I never realized I was just a tool for her, a pawn in her ridiculous obsession with her first love. With only 8 days left in my trial, I finally saw Diana for who she really was. And to think I had been planning a huge, elaborate proposal for her, scheduled for the very day the 3 months were up. The event planner called me to approve the venue, and as I hung up, I opened my phone and saw a new post on Leo's Facebook. The caption read, "My oldest friend, the one who's been with me since we were kids, is now helping me pick out my wedding tux." The photo was of him and Diana, smiling together. I immediately checked Diana's Facebook page, and, just as I suspected, I was blocked from seeing her posts. She stopped me from going to my own grandfather's funeral arrangements, left me hanging in Chicago, and also, she could go tuxedo shopping with Leo. I was a complete and utter fool. My first call was to the event planner to cancel the entire proposal. Then, I called the Michelin-starred restaurant Diana had always dreamed of eating at and changed my reservation for 2 into a private room for 10. I had neglected my friends for so long because of her, and this dinner was my apology to them. We all got completely wasted, and as I was settling the bill, I ran into Diana, who was in the middle of a full-blown meltdown. She was yelling at the staff over an order of foie gras. The waiter was patiently explaining, "Ma'am, our restaurant isn't part of that mall promotion. I'm sorry, but this voucher isn't valid here. I shared your post on my Facebook for 7 days straight. Why can't I use it? Do you want me to tank your reviews online?" Diana's shouting had attracted a small crowd, and realizing she wasn't winning the argument, she pulled out her phone. "Un moment later, minerans. Frank, get over here right now. You have 3 minutes." Diana looked up and saw me standing there, and she completely lost it. "Seriously, Frank? I told you to never ask where I am, and now you're stalking me." "I'm not stalking you," I said calmly. "Bullshit. You're telling me you just came here to eat? There's no way you can afford a place this expensive." It was clear then that after 3 years, she knew absolutely nothing about me. Her entire world revolved around Leo. With my 6-figure salary, a fancy dinner was nothing. But before I could say anything, she pinched her nose and recoiled. "You've been drinking? Have I not told you how much I hate the smell of alcohol? Frank, do you want to fail this trial or not?" She seemed to regret her outburst immediately, waving her hand dismissively. "Whatever. Just pay for the foie gras. Leo is waiting to eat. I'll let it slide this time." Once again, it was all about Leo. I was bending over backward for her, while she was groveling for another guy. I was done. The waiter turned to me, his tone shifting to one of utmost respect. "Sir, your black card includes a complimentary order of foie gras each month. If she's with you, we can of course take this off your bill." I shook my head. "No, thank you. I don't know her." Ignoring Diana's stunned expression, I turned and walked back to my private dining room. When I sobered up later, a part of me felt a pang of regret, worried that this time she might actually be done with me for good. Thankfully, a message from Diana was waiting on my phone. To my absolute shock, she was asking me to spend the night with her at a hotel. And even more surprisingly, she said she would be alone. Diana linked her arm through mine. "Frank, this hotel is pretty expensive. We only need 1 room." Being alone in a room with her was a first after all this time. I thought maybe she'd finally had a change of heart, that she was starting to appreciate me. Even though it was $1,200 a night, I paid without hesitation. But later that evening, just as I got changed, Diana announced she wasn't feeling well and needed to go out for a wellness treatment, telling me to go to bed without her. Around midnight, there was a knock at our door. It was Tina, wrapped in a hotel blanket, her face etched with worry. "Have you seen Leo?" A dull ache spread through my chest. So Leo was here too. Tina's eyes darted past me into the room, and when she realized Diana was also gone, she started to panic. Not wanting to air their dirty laundry, we searched the resort grounds ourselves all night without involving the staff. Just as the sky began to lighten, I spotted them on a nearby hill overlooking the lake. Diana was pointing at the rising sun, her voice carrying on the morning air. A moment later, I heard her say wistfully, "After you're married, we won't be able to watch the sunrise together anymore." Leo just ruffled her hair. "Of course we can. You'll always be my best friend. Besides, you have Frank and I have Tina. We're just friends." Their idea of just friends was sneaking off to do things they couldn't do in the light of day. I started to walk toward them, but Tina held me back. In that moment, I realized she was just as trapped in this as I was. "Is it worth it?" I asked her quietly. "As long as I get to marry him, yes, it's worth it," she replied. She could put up with it, but I couldn't. I left without saying goodbye to anyone and booked the next flight home to my parents' place for New Year's. When I finally turned my phone on after landing, I saw 16 missed calls from Diana. The last thing she sent was a text message, just a few words, but each one felt like a knife to the heart. "Frank Miller, your trial period is over. You failed." I quickly discovered Diana had blocked me on everything. With 6 days still technically left in the trial, my 3 years of complete devotion had officially ended in failure. As I sat there, lost in a daze, my mom came over and felt my forehead. "You look like you've seen a ghost, honey. Is there a girl?" Before, Diana had forced me to keep our relationship a secret from my family. Now, there was no relationship to hide. Seeing my state, my mom insisted I go on a blind date she'd set up. My date was a sweet, slender girl named Jasmine. We had barely started talking when my phone buzzed. It was a video call from Diana. Apparently, I was no longer on her block list. "Frank," she said, "Tina told me you had a family emergency, so I'll forgive you for leaving." I glanced over at Jasmine, who was politely pretending to be absorbed in her glass of water. Diana continued, "You have 5 minutes. Get to the Oak Room on Rush Street." She hung up before I could refuse. Jasmine looked at me knowingly. "That's the girl you're in love with, isn't it? The one you're planning to propose to?" I was stunned she knew about the proposal, but she just smiled. "She ordered a custom wedding gown for my boutique a few days ago," Jasmine explained. "Said she needed it for when her boyfriend proposed." I froze. Diana was actually planning to accept me, to wear a wedding dress for me? My resolve melted. As I stood up to leave, Jasmine asked if she could come along, saying she needed to confirm some measurements with Diana anyway. We grabbed a cab, but by the time we got to the restaurant, much more than 5 minutes had passed. Diana was standing alone on the curb, looking small and forlorn. I walked up to her. "I'm here, Diana. Have you been drinking?" She looked up at me, her eyes bloodshot. "Frank, you're an hour late. I'm sorry I was—" The sharp crack of a slap cut me off as her hand connected with my cheek. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Tina already came and picked Leo up. If you hadn't been so late, he wouldn't have gone home with her. If anything happens between them because he's drunk, I will never, ever forgive you." She collapsed against me, beating her fists against my chest. "Why couldn't you have just gotten here before Tina? Why? I finally managed to get him alone, and you ruined it. You ruined everything." My cheek stung, but the pain in my chest was far worse. Seeing her completely unhinged, I gripped her by the shoulders. "Diana, they're engaged. They're getting married. Whatever you think might happen between them has probably already happened. You need to wake up." She clapped her hands over her ears. "Shut up." Thankfully, Jasmine stepped in and broke the tense standoff. We managed to call one of Diana's friends to come and take her home. On the ride back, Jasmine apologized. "It has nothing to do with you," I told her. "This is all on me for being a fool." I gave a bitter laugh and looked at Jasmine. "Can I see Diana's Facebook page?" She's always had me blocked. She handed me her phone, and for the very first time, I scrolled through Diana's life online. There were over 1,000 posts, and not a single one had anything to do with me. Pinned to the top of her profile was a picture of her in a wedding dress from Jasmine's shop. The caption read, "The day I confess my love to you will be the day I marry you in my heart." I finally understood. The confession, the dress, it was all for Leo. I shut the phone with a bitter smile, the reality crashing down on me. My past 3 years had been a complete joke. The next day was New Year's Eve, and I was watching a movie with my parents when Diana's messages started popping up on the TV screen. "Frank, my friend told me you were with some woman last night. Who was she? You have 5 seconds to answer me, or we're done. 5, 4, 3, 2. Frank Miller, answer me right now." My parents both turned to stare at me, and my dad immediately reached for his slipper. "Son, did you get some girl into trouble?" "No, I swear," I pleaded. The words were barely out of my mouth when my phone started ringing. It was Diana. My dad pointed the slipper at me. "Answer it." I had no choice. Diana's voice was thick with emotion. "Frank, who was that woman last night?" "My blind date," I said, telling the simple truth. "You're the one who said we had to keep our relationship a secret. My mom thinks I'm single, so she set me up." Diana was silent for a moment. "I know you're in love with Leo," I said. "Let's just stop this." As I was about to hang up, I heard her whisper, "But the trial isn't over. I haven't told you that you can leave yet." I ended the call and turned off my phone. My parents just looked at each other and quietly went to their room. The next morning, New Year's Day, there was a knock at our front door. I never would have expected to see Diana standing on our doorstep. I had tried to introduce her to my parents twice before, and both times she had chewed me out so badly I never dare bring it up again. Yet here she was. She held out 2 large gift boxes to my mom and said, "Hello, Mrs. Miller. I'm Frank's girlfriend." My parents were speechless. As they started to invite her in, I grabbed her arm and pulled her back outside onto the porch. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. Her eyes were red and swollen. "Frank, I came to wish your family a happy new year. We're a couple, aren't we?" I had no idea what kind of game she was playing now. "Diana, I know you don't love me. Let's just go our separate ways, okay?" I pulled out my phone to order her an Uber, but she quickly pushed my hand down. "Please don't send me away. It took so much for me to get here. Is this about Leo again?" "No," she said, a little too quickly. "This time it's about you." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. That was the most ridiculous thing I'd heard all year. "Just go, Diana. I don't want to see you." I turned to go back inside, but she grabbed the hem of my jacket. "It's New Year's Day. I won't be able to get a ride back. Please, can I just stay for one night?" I ended up taking her to a small motel down the road. The room was tiny, and we sat awkwardly on the edge of the single bed. "You should get some rest." "I'm going," I said, standing up. With her head down, Diana bit her lip and whispered, "Can you stay with me tonight?" My heart skipped a beat. This was the girl who never let me so much as touch her. I had never even held her hand, let alone spent the night together. She slowly slipped off her coat, then her leggings, and leaned her upper body toward me. "You've always wanted me, haven't you?" "Tonight, I'm saying yes." I felt like I'd been struck by lightning, completely frozen. The girl I'd been in love with for 3 years was offering herself to me. Any normal guy would have jumped at the chance. But did I really want to go down that same path again? As I hesitated, Diana placed her hand high on my thigh. "Please, Frank," she whispered. I swallowed hard, my hand closing around her wrist. But that was the old me. I tightened my grip on her wrist and pushed her away. Stop it, Diana. I walked to the door. From behind me, Diana cried out, Frank, I'm not mad anymore. I won't even ask who you were with last night. Can we please just go back to how things were? I froze. Hearing those words from her, a peace offering felt completely surreal. I took another step toward the door. Frank, are you really leaving me? She pleaded. If you walk out that door, there's no coming back for us. I looked down at my feet, which suddenly felt rooted to the cheap motel carpet. One more step, and it would be over. 3 years of loving her gone. Frank, you need to think very carefully about this. Diana's voice was desperate. I had thought about it. I pulled the door shut, closing it on her and on that entire chapter of my life. The next time I saw Diana was at Leo and Tina's wedding. And just as Jasmine had said, she was wearing a wedding gown. During the toasts, Diana suddenly stormed the stage and grabbed the microphone from the MC. She tapped the mic testing 1, 2. Once she was sure it was on, she held it up. Hi everyone, my name is Diana Vance, and today I want to confess my love to a man I've cared about for a very long time. A wave of murmurs went through the reception hall as all eyes turned to her. Someone from the crowd yelled, Who is it? Tell us. Diana took a deep breath, lifted the mic, and looked directly at me. Frank Miller, I love you. Please be with me. My eyes went wide, and I was completely frozen. Since when was I the one she wanted to confess to? She went on, her voice cracking. Frank, I was such a fool. I only just realized how wonderful you are. Will you please give me another chance? The crowd started chanting. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Leo and one of his groomsmen practically dragged me onto the stage. Diana stood before me, her eyes pleading and sincere. Frank, will you? She asked. Would I? A few months ago, I would have given anything for this moment. But now, looking at her, I felt absolutely nothing. I'm sorry, I said, my voice clear. I can't. I offered a quick apology to the stunned crowd and walked out of the reception hall. You're lying, Diana yelled, running after me and hiking up the skirt of her gown. Frank, you're just still mad at me, right? You love me too much. How could you say no? I stopped and turned to her. Let me ask you something, Diana. Who was this wedding dress really for? It was for you, of course, she insisted. Still lying. The blue star flowers embroidered on the bodice, I said calmly. That's Leo's favorite flower, and you know I'm allergic to pollen. She frantically ripped the floral applique from her dress and hid it behind her back. So what if I used to love him? I love you now. Frank, I don't believe you can just walk away from me. As she continued to plead, I gestured to Jasmine, who was standing patiently by the door, waiting to collect payment for the dress. I am sorry, Diana. I already have a girlfriend. I put my arm around Jasmine's shoulders and led her away. Thank you, I said quietly. You're welcome, she replied with a small smile. The dress is $9,000. You can Venmo me. Later that night, Diana's best friend messaged me. She said that after the confrontation at the restaurant, the night I went home with Jasmine, Diana had cried all night. She claimed Diana realized then that she had fallen in love with me, and that Leo was just an old obsession she couldn't let go of. She said Diana was desperate to win me back and was waiting for me now in Millennium Park, where we first met. She sent me a video Diana had recorded. Frank, you have 15 minutes to get here. If you're late, I'm gone, she said through tears. My friends, who were with me, also pushed me to go. They all knew how deeply I had loved her. They ended up driving me over to the park. Diana was standing on the steps by Crown Fountain, still in her wedding dress. Frank, I know you're out there, she called out. There are 3 minutes left until your trial period officially ends. Just show yourself, and I promise, I'll be yours, no conditions. The Chicago wind whipped around her, and in the thin dress, she looked fragile and innocent. My friend nudged me. Go on, man. You love her so much. Don't live with regrets. It was true. I had loved her. But where was she when I needed her? Diana held up her phone and began a countdown. 10, 9. Dude, go, my friend urged. Just then, an alarm went off on my phone. It was the alarm I'd set 3 months ago. The probationary period was officially over. I let out a long breath. I'm done playing, I said, turning to my friends. Let's get out of here and grab a drink. My friends exchanged a look, then broke into wide grins. We went to lounge in River North, and a few drinks in, a girl got on stage to sing. She wore a simple, elegant dress, and her wavy hair framed her face. After her song, a group of loud, drunk guys started heckling her. When she stepped off the stage, one of them cornered her, demanding her number. She tried to refuse, but he wouldn't back off, so I stepped between them. It was only then that I realized the singer was Jasmine. Jasmine could hold her liquor. When she heard my trial was over and I was officially single, she ordered a case of hard seltzers for our table. Drink up. It's on the house tonight, she declared. It turned out, on top of owning the bridal boutique, she also owned this bar. I was getting pretty drunk, and Jasmine and I were sitting closer and closer. Suddenly, she looked at me and said, "You look like you'd be a good kisser." I froze. She just smiled, leaned in, and gently pressed her lips against mine. Her boldness left me speechless. She just watched me with an amused smile. "What's wrong? Was that your first kiss?" I looked away, embarrassed. The truth was, Diana was the only girl I'd ever loved, and I had never pushed her for any kind of physical intimacy. So yes, it was my first kiss. Jasmine nudged my arm. "Want to do something a little more exciting?" She took me back to her boutique, told me to wait on the couch, and disappeared into a dressing room. A few moments later, she emerged wearing a stunning, form-fitting cocktail dress. She said it was one of her own designs that she'd never had an occasion to wear. She walked over and turned her back to me. "Can you get my zipper?" She knelt in front of me, her hands resting on my knees as I reached for the zipper. The simple intimacy of the moment made my heart pound. Aided by liquid courage, I zipped up the dress, and as she stood, she seemed to lose her balance and fell right into my lap. "Frank, let's give us a try," she whispered, her fingers moving to the buttons of my shirt. The touch shocked me back to sobriety. I grabbed my jacket, scrambled out of the shop, and flagged down the first cab I saw. "Just take me home, please," I mumbled to the driver, and then I must have passed out. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in my own bed, and Diana was standing over me. She explained that I'd been unconscious in the cab, so the driver used my phone to call my emergency contact. Diana took my hand. "Frank, I knew you still cared about me." Before I could respond, she was feeding me a slice of apple she'd just cut. She was trying so hard to show me she had changed. Then, she turned and began to undress. "Frank," she said, tears streaming down her face, "everything I wouldn't let you do before, you can do it now. Can we please start over?" Before I could answer, another voice cut in. "No." It was Jasmine standing in my bedroom doorway. She walked over and gently took my hand from Diana's grasp. "Where did you disappear till last night? I was looking all over for you." I had never in my life been in a situation like this, with two women arguing over me while I lay in bed. Diana sat possessively on the edge of the mattress and tucked the covers around me. "Frank, now that I'm here, you can tell her to go. You need to be cared for by someone who's actually close to you." "Close?" Jasmine shot back. "We've already kissed. How much closer do you want?" Jasmine's words made Diana snap. Her eyes, wide with fury, fixed on me. "Frank, how could you sleep with another woman so soon?" Had she completely forgotten that when we were supposed to be together, she was the one who disappeared for a night with Leo? And now she had the nerve to accuse me. My head was spinning. I couldn't deal with either of them and told them both to leave. A few days later, yet another woman from this drama contacted me. It was Tina. She looked exhausted as she sat across from me in a coffee shop, stirring her latte. Tina quietly explained that after Diana's public confession at the wedding, Leo couldn't hide his feelings for Diana anymore. He started ignoring Tina completely, spending his time staring at old gifs from Diana, lost in memories. The night before, Leo had gotten drunk, and the first person he tried to call wasn't his wife, but Diana. He wanted her to come pick him up, but he couldn't reach her. I felt a twinge of guilt, knowing that the reason he couldn't reach Diana was because she had abandoned him to come to my apartment. This was the exact scenario I used to dream of, but now it just seemed pathetic. I guess it's true what they say about not knowing what you've got till it's gone. As I was lost in thought, Tina reached across the table and took my hand. "Frank, we should give it a try. The two of us. It would be the perfect revenge." I snatched my hand back as if I'd been burned. I looked at the defeated woman in front of me, the light completely gone from her eyes, and felt a wave of relief that I had gotten out when I did. "Don't you hate her?" she asked. I just shook my head. I didn't have time for hate. I'd rather spend my energy learning to love someone new. I put in for a leave of absence from work and took off for 3 months, the same amount of time as Diana's trial. It was only when I was out exploring the world that I realized how much you can do in 3 months when you're not revolving your entire life around one person. I climbed Mount Rainier, and standing at the summit, I realized that everyone has their own peak to conquer. I went bungee jumping off a bridge in Idaho, and in that free fall, all the old drama felt like nothing more than a distant memory. I even got my scuba certification. There might not be air down there, but there's a profound sense of freedom. My last stop was my grandpa's grave. I brought him his favorite flowers. He was the one who taught me that when you love someone, you love them with your whole heart, the same way he had always loved my grandma. No matter how much my parents begged, he never left the little house he shared with her, because it was full of their memories. And I had abandoned him in his final days, all to chase after a girl who didn't care. I hoped he could forgive me. A sudden breeze rustled the trees, and a single petal from the bouquet drifted down into my open palm. If It felt like a sign from him, an answer. It reminded me of when I was a kid. He would always bring me a wildflower from his walks, telling me it was a reward for being brave. Grandpa, I'm so sorry I'm late, I whispered, hugging the cold stone of his headstone as I cried. I placed a handful of fresh earth on the grave and left just as the sun began to set. The moment I walked out of the arrivals gate at O'Hare, I saw her. Jasmine was waiting for me, leaning against a sleek motorcycle. She opened her arms wide. Frank Miller, welcome home. I hugged her back tightly before hopping on the seat behind her. She told me that while I was gone, Diana had come to her shop multiple times. Once, she even showed up drunk and passed out on the doorstep, begging to know where I was. Did you tell her? I asked. Of course not. If she found you, what would be left for me? Jasmine said with a playful grin. And she was right. Love is selfish in a way. Why should I have to share my life with someone else's ghost? I pulled a small, empty glass bottle from my bag and handed it to her. She took it, her brow furrowed in confusion. What's this? It's air, I said. From every place I visited, I wanted to share it with you. It was true. When I was standing on that mountaintop, I thought of her, knowing she would have loved it just as much as I did. A slow, satisfied smile spread across her face. So you finally realized how great I am, huh? Yes, I had. So, would you be willing to? I cut her off by cupping her face in my hands and kissing her. Let me be the one to say it, I said softly, gently wiping a smudge of lipstick from her lips. Jasmine, I'm falling for you. I want to be with you. Will you be my girlfriend? She wrapped her arms around my neck and whispered in my ear, yes. Things with Jasmine moved fast. There was no trial period. She introduced me to all her friends and family, and she posted a picture of us on Facebook, making it official for the whole world to see. There are no secrets. In our love, it was just the two of us, completely open and honest. When Leo heard we were getting married, he wanted to take us out to dinner. He was planning on getting the old group together, still caught in that messy triangle with Tina and Diana. I declined the invitation. A marriage should be built on sincerity, and I wanted nothing to do with their drama. A short while later, Tina announced she was pregnant. Leo was ecstatic. He went with her to every doctor's appointment and was by her side through the entire pregnancy. He was a devoted father-to-be, right up until the baby was born and the blood type results came back. That's when he learned he wasn't the father. The two families had a massive, public falling out. Their long-suffering marriage ended in chaos. Diana showed up uninvited to my engagement party with Jasmine. She had a man in a suit on her arm. This is my new boyfriend, she announced. Since we both moved on, we can finally just be friends. Right? Just friends. I took Jasmine's hand and pulled our freshly signed marriage certificates from my jacket pocket. No thanks, I said, holding them up. I have plenty of friends. I only need one wife. From that day forward, Jasmine was the only one for me. In that moment, I could almost hear the sound of Diana's self-constructed fantasy world crashing down around her. Hand in hand, Jasmine and I walked on, leaving all that drama far behind us, ready for all the better days to come.